Guys, like I said in the last video, we are going to talk about 7 theories that people have come up with over the last 2,000 years to try to explain why the resurrection is not real. So trying to explain away the resurrection, why it's not a real historical fact. We as Christians do believe it is a real historical fact that Jesus Christ physically died and descends into hell, like we talked about before break, and then resurrects from the dead. Okay, so we're going to talk about the 7 theories, and we're going to go through each theory and talk about why it doesn't make sense, why it doesn't make sense that that happens instead of the resurrection. So we're going to disprove all these theories, okay? Some make a little bit more sense than others, some are a little bit far-fetched, but just know that people have been coming up with a lot of different ways over the centuries to try to explain away the resurrection. Some maybe hold a little bit more weight than others. So I'll let you come up with what you think makes the most sense. So the first theory I want to talk about is mass hallucination. I do have pictures for all these. I'd love it if you drew those pictures in your notes as well. Normally, of course, I'd be drawing with you in class, but can't really do that here. So please include them in your notes. And if you need to pause the video to draw, pause it. So the first theory is mass hallucination. So basically what this theory says is that the disciples collectively hallucinate Jesus. So he is a figment of their imagination, and he is simply just something they're seeing in their minds. He's not real. He's still dead. He's in the tomb. Okay? Now this doesn't really work because hallucinations don't work like this. What we hear about in scriptures is that the apostles see Jesus, but when they see him at different places and different times, and groups of them see him at the same time. So trying to get a group hallucination like that doesn't really make sense. Why do all 3 of the women hallucinate the same thing? Why do the apostles hallucinate the same thing? At what point in scripture we hear that Jesus appears to 500 people at the same time? I don't know what drug they would have taken or, something like that to have made them all hallucinate at the exact same time. So hallucinations don't work like that. The other issue is that Jesus appears at different times and in different places to people. So it's not just the same group of people that report seeing Jesus, or just one group of people at one place report seeing Jesus and nobody ever sees him again. He appears at different times and different places, but they all record a really similar story of this encounter with the resurrected Christ. Hallucinations don't work like that. They're not going to see the exact same thing. They're going to hallucinate something else. The other big question, and this is one we're going to face a lot today, is what happens to Jesus's body. If they really are just hallucinating Jesus, if he really is just a figment of their imagination, his body would still be in the tomb. But there is no record of anybody ever finding his body or producing his body. So that doesn't really make any sense. The second theory is what's called spiritual resurrection. I call this ghost Jesus, basically. But the idea is that Jesus is dead, but Jesus' spirit, his ghost, whatever you want to call it, is floating around, appearing to people, talking to people. So, he's not a physical body, but he's a ghost. He's a spirit roaming around. Okay. This doesn't work. One, because the disciples preach a bodily resurrection. They talk about being able to physically touch Christ. Jesus appears in the upper room to 10 of the disciples. This is the story where Thomas is gone somewhere. And he appears to the 10 disciples and he eats fish. So we see a couple of times where he eats after the resurrection, trying to show that he's a physical person. He's a body. We also do have the story of Doubting Thomas, where if you remember, he says he's not going to believe that Jesus is resurrected until he can touch Jesus's wounds himself. And Jesus appears and lets Thomas touch his wounds. So Thomas has a physical encounter with Christ. He can physically touch Jesus. That is something you cannot do with a ghost. The other question is, where's the body? If Jesus is just a spirit, if Jesus is just a ghost, then again, his body should be present in the tomb. But nobody produces a body. Nobody points, hey, there's the body. And remember, Pilate and the Jewish leaders have a stake in making sure Jesus is still dead. Okay, they killed him in order to put an end to this whole Jesus thing, this whole Messiah movement. And if Jesus is going around, or people are going around saying that they've seen resurrected Jesus, the apostles and the Jewish leaders and Pilate are going to make sure that Jesus is still dead. And they don't do that. They're not able to squash this story that's going around about the resurrected Jesus. Okay, our third theory is that Jesus is really a twin. Now, this is my favorite theory. It is maybe the most outlandish, but the story kind of goes that Jesus had a secret twin, and it kind of goes a couple ways. Either one, Jesus dies on the cross and is in the tomb, and his twin goes around pretending to be Jesus, or reverse it, that somehow his twin is killed in his place, and then Jesus goes around pretending like he's resurrected. A little out there. So why doesn't it make sense? Well, one, there's no historical record of Jesus having a twin. I think it would be pretty difficult to hide a twin for 33 years, with nobody knowing about him, nobody talking about him. You know, we kind of get into a little bit of morbid thoughts that Joseph and Mary hide this twin, you know, I guess to take Jesus's place, to die for Jesus. Or even if the twin is the one pretending to be resurrected Jesus, he's going to have to perfectly mimic Jesus's mannerisms to his best friends, right? To the 11 apostles who spent 3 years living and working with him. Somehow they're going to have to, you know, he's going to have to imitate them or imitate Jesus to them. So it doesn't really work. You know, why have we never heard of the twin? Where is this twin? Also, again, we run into the problem of the body. If Jesus is dead in the tomb and his twin's walking around, or the twin's dead in the tomb and Jesus is walking around, there's somebody's body in the tomb, and that body is never produced. Number 4 is, maybe this one makes a little bit more sense. It's that the disciples go to the wrong tomb. So in their distress, in their pain, the women misremember which tomb is Jesus's, and instead of going to the proper tomb, the women go to an unused tomb, a tomb that's open, that they don't realize is theirs, or that they don't realize is Jesus's. Now, there's several problems with this. One, the Bibles record that the women know what tomb it is. Remember the last video? The women are having to go to finish preparing his body for burial. So they would have noted which body or which tomb is Jesus's so that they could go back and finish anointing his body. It's also the only tomb with a Roman guard and seal on it. If you remember when we read Matthew's Passion, I specifically told you that that line in there about the guards getting placed at Jesus' tomb and the seal placed on it was Matthew's way to prove the resurrection is true. That it had a Roman guard, it had a Roman seal, and nobody else would have had that in the garden. No other tomb would have had a Roman guard and seal there. So the women would have immediately known that they're at the wrong tomb and looked for that one with the guard and the seal on it. Also, why wasn't there a body produced? This one's pretty simple. The women are walking around saying, "Oh my gosh, Jesus is raised from the dead. Can you believe it? There's no body in his tomb." And Pilate would have said, "It's right there. The guards are right there. His body is in the tomb." But yet that body is never produced. Okay, number 5 is Jesus fainted on the cross. This is also called the swoon theory. So basically, Jesus pretends to die, or he faints of some sort, and wakes up in the tomb and goes back out and pretends that he died and was resurrected. Or the apostles think he died and was resurrected, but he never died in the first place. Why doesn't it make sense? Well, one, how would he survive the whipping? How would he survive the crucifixion? We've talked about how much he got tortured. He was scourged beyond what was lawful. He was crucified. He had a lance piercing his heart. How would he survive all that? How would he live, for 3 days beyond that? And let's say he did live. Somehow he survived the crucifixion. He survived 3 days in the tomb. How would he have gotten out? Now, this rock is something that takes two women guards, to move. The women were worried about who was going to move the stone for them. So how would he have gotten out? He would have been weak. He would have been really struggling. And then even if he got out, how would he have overcome the guards? These men are trained to kill. How could he have overcome them? How would he have overpowered them and then be able to go out and pretend that he's resurrected? Doesn't really make sense. Okay, number 6. 6 and 7, maybe they kind of go together, and they're definitely in the maybe a little bit more plausible space. So number 6 is that the disciples lie. That they go around and pretend that Jesus is resurrected and try to tell the disciples that, or try to tell the world that. First of all, again, where's the body? If they're lying, if they're just pretending that Jesus is raised from the dead, then there would be a body somewhere to produce in the tomb. And then also, why die for a lie? These martyrs, or these apostles, we're going to look at next class, die horrific deaths. Why would they die such horrific deaths for a lie? After the Passion, they're so scared that they're going to get killed. They're so scared they're on Rome's radar. And after the crucifixion, they've slipped back into their normal life. They've been able to escape Rome. Why put themselves back in front of Rome to be killed? And they do eventually get killed. So why do that? Why die for such a lie? Also, the story is way too consistent. They're too good at it. If they really were making it up, there'd start to be inconsistencies. There'd start to be places where it doesn't quite add up, but we never see that. The story is way too consistent among the apostles. And then lastly, someone would have fessed up. My money is on St. Bartholomew. St. Bartholomew was flayed alive, so he was skinned alive, which does not kill him. And so he actually ends up beheaded because he wasn't killed. And if that was me, as soon as I took the knife to the first part of my skin, I would have started screaming, "We made it up," and I would have fessed up everything. But nobody does that. Bartholomew doesn't do that. Nobody fesses up to the lie. Okay, and then last theory, this is probably the most popular one, is that the disciples steal the body. So it kind of goes with the disciples' lie, that they take the body, they steal it, they hide it somewhere, they drop it in the Sea of Galilee, I don't know. But they do something with it, and they go around telling people Jesus is raised from the dead. Why doesn't this make sense? Why would it not make sense that they stole the body? One, how would they have overpowered the guards? These are poor fishermen from Galilee. They're not trained. They're not strong. They're not military. Going up against some of the world's best mercenaries, some of the best soldiers in the world at the time. Men who are trained to kill you. How would they overpower them? How would they overcome them? Again, like the last one, why would they die for a lie? Okay, why would they go through all this trouble for something they just made up? And lastly, nobody's ever produced. If you've ever seen the movie Risen, which I think Mr. Stein showed you last year, it's a story of after the resurrection. They are, the apostle are claiming Jesus is raised from the dead, and it's the story of 2 Roman soldiers who go looking for Jesus. They go looking for his body, and they're not able to produce it. And Pilate definitely would have sent people out, so would the Jewish leaders, to try to find the body and to disprove the resurrection. Okay, that's where we're going to stop for today. Next class will probably be another video. We'll finish off the resurrection notes and talk a little bit about what the resurrection means for us. I hope you guys are having a good Cyber Day. I hope you enjoyed your time off last week. And hopefully we can somehow see each other or connect. I'm still kind of trying to figure all that out, how the next couple weeks are going to look. But hopefully by April 6th, we'll be able to see each other in person again. And we'll figure out prayers and all that sort of stuff when we get back together. So have a great day, everyone. I will talk to you all soon. Please turn your notes in. Don't forget to snap a picture and turn them in to the classroom. Please turn them in on Classroom. Do not email them to me. I will trash them. So please turn them in on Classroom. I want all work collected there. And email me if you guys have any questions. I will talk to you all soon. Bye.